And stocks in Asia were mostly higher today following a report suggesting further turmoil for the markets in 2019. The mainland Chinese markets were mixed by the end of their trading day after the country reported lower than expected economic data last Friday. The Shanghai Composite rose 0.16%, while the Shenzhen Composite declined by 0.309%. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was slightly higher in its final hour of trade. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 rose 0.62%, while the Topix Index saw gains of 0.13%. South Korea's Kospi closed fractionally higher at 2,071 points. Australia's ASX 200 saw gains of 1%, with almost all sectors in positive territory. And Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures pointed to a slightly negative start for Monday's open after all three major U.S. indices closed in correction territory for the first time since March 2016 in the prior trading session. Dow futures were down 17 points, implying a loss of 18.51 points at the open. As at 3:28 a.m. Eastern Time, S&P 500 and Nasdaq futures also pointed to a lower open for the two indices. And recent economic data have reignited worries of economic slowdown around the globe and kept a lid on stock returns. Investors are also on edge ahead of the December meeting of the Federal Reserve's policymaking arm. The Federal Open Market Committee is expected to hike its benchmark overnight lending rate for a fourth and final time of 2018 this week. And away from the markets and back here, the South African government has officially launched a 2 billion rand fund aimed at generating thousands of jobs through creating and funding of small businesses and entrepreneurs. The project, Developed Partnership Fund, has been established through a joint venture between the Public Investment Corporation and Unemployment Insurance Fund, an entity of the Department of Labour. The South African Labour Minister, Mildred Oliphant, unveiled the fund in Pretoria, where she says there is hope that the deep economic inequalities in the country will be reduced by the initiative.
According to Stats SA, South Africa's third quarter youth unemployment figure stands at 27.5%. To attempt to change this, the Labour Minister, Mildred Oliphant, has unveiled government's latest bright idea.
PIC has established the Project Development Partnership Fund, which is aimed at supporting and creating jobs through creating and funding small businesses. To this end, an allocation of 2 billion rands will be directed towards the PDP fund, and this allocation will be funded by UIF through the already existing social responsible investing mandate. We also recognize that the Republic of South Africa is one of the most unequal societies in the world, and that there are huge disparities in income in the national labor market. And we fully embrace the need to address unemployment, poverty, and inequality in our society.
Bearing in mind the advent of the fourth industrial revolution, Minister Oliphant believes there's a need to bridge the economic inequality gap through funding for business startups and growing businesses, especially those in the ICT sector.
There is evidence that small business sector is the backbone of any economy and contributes significantly in the gross domestic product of any country. SMMEs represents a considerable 40% of all business in South Africa, and it has been estimated that by 2030, 90% of the jobs will be in this sector.
Although the government believes this initiative will solve the unemployment problem among the youths, some of those who attended believe there are still many challenges for small businesses' survival.
I've worked behind the counter, behind the shops, and I've gotten to see how a lot of the foreign-owned businesses operate. Now I don't know when I put that in a business plan, if it will be recognized as worthwhile experience, or if I'll be recognized as knowledgeable enough to receive funding for me to be able to start my own. Because I've secured suppliers, I've had the experience, I've gotten to see it, but it's not a formalized thing, you know. So if I'm to say maybe I dropped out of my economics diploma, and then I have a metric to back me up on that and a couple of certificates, does that make me credible then for such a fund?
This fund is not looking at the missing middle. So it's looking into, so even its objectives and its targets, it's looking at a different element. So it's recognizing that there's that little element that is required that the market is not looking into. So that's the difference in this fund, that its initial objective is to look at that area that is actually missing. And that's why we've highlighted that it's going to look at early stage investment. So unlike all other investments that tend to look at later stages, this one is different because it's where its objective and its target is.
Skills mismatch is one of the challenges most businesses face in South Africa. But with full implementation, the funding program seeks to cultivate and introduce skills enhancement programs that will equip those seeking business opportunities.
Zimbabwe's inflation has risen to a fresh 10-year high of 31.01% year-on-year in November from 20.85% in October, after prices of basic goods spiked amid an acute shortage of dollars that has made imports expensive. On a monthly basis, prices increased by 9.2% in November compared to 16.44% in October. Zimbabwe adopted the US dollar in 2009 after its own currency was made worthless by hyperinflation. But Zimbabweans have watched as the dollars in their bank accounts, known as zolas, have lost value against cash US dollars. Central bank data shows that some $10 billion were being held as electronic dollars in bank accounts, but less than $250 million in cash dollars. Zimstat said prices of food, including bread, of beverages and clothes, had pushed the consumer price index higher. And Glencore PLC's Katanga mining division has agreed to pay more than $22 million to Canada's biggest stock market regulator amid allegations the company hid risks of doing business in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Ontario Securities Commission alleged that Katanga hid risks associated with doing business with an Israeli businessman, Dan Gettler, who has close ties to outgoing Congolese President Joseph Kabila. Gettler first invested in the mining division alongside Glencore about 10 years ago. The commission is expected to allege the Congolese president lacked proper internal financial controls, pushing the company to exaggerate its copper production while at the same time downplaying mining costs. Zambia has denied claims by a White House official that China is about to take over its state power utility to recover $6 to $10 billion debt, saying that the utility was never provided as collateral and its debt to Beijing was only $3.1 billion. U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said on Thursday that China's quest for more power in Africa was evident in nations like Zambia, and China was poised to take over Zambia's utility company Zesco to collect the debt. Zambia's presidential spokesman Amos Chanda said the figure of between $6 to $10 billion given by Bolton was wrong. Zambia's total external debt was now $9.7 billion, including $3.1 billion owed to China. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we get the latest on the Access Bank Diamond Bank takeover deal. To stay with us.